welcome to GraftCast, the show where we talk to business leaders about their entrepreneurial journeys. Today we've got Nathan Jones on the show to talk us through everything that there is to talk about wholesale.
It should be a really good episode. I think definitely doing a bit of research on him before. So much goes into the wholesale side. Obviously, there's a lot of cash in it as well. It should be quite an interesting episode.
And he's been very successful over the last few years. So looking forward to this episode. So I'm going to go straight into it. Nathan, welcome to GraftCast.
Thank you.
Have you always been entrepreneurial?
From a very young age, from maybe the age of 10, 11 years old, I always looked for opportunities where, quite frankly, I could make a few quid. Some early memories were purchasing shirts and garments in bulk and then taking them into school and selling them to either my classmates or teachers or anyone else that would buy them. So, I've always had an interest in making money and margin and looking to see how I can then purchase more, and obviously understood quite early that the more that you're able to buy, the better price that you're able to achieve, and ultimately maybe the deeper price that you could give to your customer. So yeah, I'd say I've always had a real interest in entrepreneurialism, if you like. My family were in business, so I grew up with it around me, really. My parents had a vehicle recovery business, and very much the business was at home for a lot of the time. We had our control room, which came through to the house. So business was always a topic of conversation at our table, which I guess was a blessing and a curse in a lot of ways. No, that was something, I guess, that was in a lot of respects kind of bred into me, really. So yes.
So I thought, just for the audience as well, can you tell us about what you actually do?
So essentially, we are a delivered wholesaler. So we purchase products directly from the manufacturers, A-grade brands, predominantly across food, home, personal care products. The way I would describe it to most people is pretty much anything that you find in a supermarket we would purchase outside of pharma or products that require an OTC license. So the whole breadth, really: frozen, chilled, standard grocery, home care, personal care. And we purchase product for a whole array of reasons from the brand owners directly. Quite often it may be because it's distressed or because the stock is deemed at risk in some way. Equally, brand owners are using us more and more as a vehicle to access new markets, whether that's in terms of specific export markets or whether that's specific customers within those said markets. So equally, brand owners will use us to drive volume as and when they require. So typically we tend to see that at quarter end, half year. So ultimately what we aim to do as a business is we offer a service to the brand owners where we offer full traceability on all their stock. So legally, brands can't tell us where we can and can't sell the stock. But actually, in a lot of cases, we sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements. We share sales out data. And so we give the brand owners the confidence that the stock that we're buying from them isn't going to cannibalise any of their direct sales, i.e. we do not supply to the likes of Tesco's, Asda, Sainsbury's, Morrison's. We could, but then we would jeopardise our supply, because brand owners ultimately then, you're cannibalising what they're trying to do with their direct customer base, and therefore we're kind of compromising them. So ultimately what we do is ask the brand owners, we tailor a solution to each one, and sometimes, quite often, brand owners may ask us to operate on a deal-by-deal basis. So the rules of the game or the engagement may change on a deal-by-deal or SKU-by-SKU basis. But ultimately what we do is we then receive an offer, an opportunity comes into our buying team. We then purchase the stock directly from the brand owner. And at that point, once the stock then comes into our warehouse, we then take that stock to market. We offer the stock in a whole array of different ways to our existing customers, whether that's through email, telephone, face-to-face. And then once we agree the price, we then deliver it to our customer. some brand owners will use us to distribute core products 52 weeks of the year, where maybe they don't have the scale or the infrastructure to drive the stock into the lower guys. And perhaps they want to just sell the stock by the truck. What we're able to do is bring the stock into our network, break it down, and then sell it out a pallet at a time to the customers, which quite frankly they don't have either the resource or the desire to want to sell to. In more recent times, we're seeing there's a lot of adversity around financial risk given the current economic climate. So some brand owners will ask us to sell into some of the value retailers where they perhaps don't have credit insurance, or they're maybe not prepared to take that financial risk and burden. So ultimately, in a nutshell, that's essentially what we do.
Brilliant. So let's go back a bit. So at school, sort of, you were saying about being entrepreneurial and selling items in the schoolyard and stuff like that. From school, did you go straight into sort of entrepreneurship, or was there a time before that you were working?
I left school, and then I'd say I bumbled around jobs, really. Tried a few different things, I guess I was looking for my niche. And then I found an opportunity working with BSH Home Appliances based in Old Wolverton, local to here. Obviously, they manufacture and supply Bosch, Siemens, Neff domestic goods. Got a good opportunity there, working initially on the Argos account as a support to the account manager. Quite quickly, an opportunity came up, and I moved into an account management position. I then moved from there into another account management position within that business, which was selling directly into the house builders. So the Bryant Homes, Linden Homes, sort of the larger house builders that we've all known and heard of, which was great. But I felt very quickly that the corporate world wasn't for me. Although I loved the people that I worked with, the products were fantastic, like the best products to sell. On reflection, when you look, actually probably the easiest products I've ever had to sell, because they just so fantastic in their particular category. But I felt that there was something missing, and I felt that I was effectively going to be standing in a queue for my career progression, and that queue was a lot longer than I was prepared to stand in. So I effectively looked for jobs in smaller businesses where I would maybe be given more autonomy. Outside of industry, I didn't look into domestic appliances, I don't think at all. And I applied for a job in the local Citizen, as it was back then. Well, I applied for many jobs. I went for lots of interviews. I went for interviews with companies that sold workwear and sort of smaller SME type businesses. And then I went for an interview at a company based in Bletchley called M&M Supplies. And I immediately really, really liked what I saw. Two brothers, Matthew and Mark, really hungry. You could see immediately operated at a pace that was like a level that I'd never seen before. I interviewed reasonably well on the basis that they offered me the job in sales. And my first role with them was selling into the independent wholesalers in and around London, Manchester, Liverpool. And that was quite daunting at that time. I was a young man. I was going out in the car for 3 days at a time with cases of stock, selling to these guys that were traders like I'd never seen before, that don't mix their words, tell you as it is. And the negotiation's tough, but they're very, very good. And when we're talking about negotiation in our specific industry, and what I should sort of said, is M&M Supplies, they essentially did a very similar thing. They purchased directly from the brand owners, and then they sold into approved channels. But the negotiation is tough. You're negotiating over a quarter of a pence, half a pence on a chocolate bar. So, but a quarter of a pence on a chocolate bar could be £300-400 on a pallet. You know, and I'm dealing with, in most cases, with the owner of the business. So they are really aggressive. So you've got to toughen up and quick. And I remember my first week thinking, what on earth have I done? Like, this is so difficult, like, versus what I was doing, rocking up at, 8:30, finishing at 5 o'clock at Bosch, and, phoning people, and they immediately would take your call because they knew where you was calling from, where actually I went into an environment where you had to be really, really tough and, I guess, resilient.
And what is it about sales that do you think that tickled your fancy?
I think it was a case of actually you had autonomy in a lot of ways. Obviously, you had to work within parameters. I liked that you could build good relationships with customers. I quite liked the chase. And the negotiation I really enjoyed. Not initially when I went to M&M, I found it really difficult. It wasn't something I'd say that came actually naturally to me, but I really did enjoy that. And I think just generally feeling like you start with nothing, and then maybe by the end of a call or at the end of the meeting, you have something tangible that you've achieved. So you kind of get momentum and get growing confidence and learn really on the job. I was fortunate enough. I reported directly into one of the owners. I reported into Matthew Story, who was an incredible mentor in a lot of ways, and he taught me a great deal in terms of how to, be resilient and close people and don't give up and don't take no for an answer and kind of ask a lot of good questions. So yeah, I think that's what I really enjoyed about that particular.
Do you
role.
feel that with your previous experience in sales, going from a role that you felt very comfortable in liaising with clients to a position where it's at your comfort zone and it's, some will say, more aggressive? You said that's been a big impact on morphing you into again, in sales and in the business owner you are today?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's M&M Supplies. That's what brought me out of my comfort zone. Over the course of 6 months, I think I'd kind of look, maybe again on hindsight, look at the kind of young man that walked in to that change in 6 months, because if it was a sink or swim environment really, that you had to just be aggressive and thick-skinned as well. So yeah, I think it definitely had a bearing.
So you've touched on quite a few things there. What really makes a good salesman?
I think first and foremost, the ability to listen. I think to really understand the client. Everyone's client is, whether you're selling or whether you're buying, I think the same principles apply. To really, really listen to what they need, what they want, to understand their business, to understand the challenges that they face, and then to find solutions. Yeah, and I think that is the key thing. Is that, and also building confidence and trust. I think once you've built trust, and trust can take varying times to develop. Trust can take years and years to develop in some cases, and other times you can build trust quite quickly. But I think, if you ask the person to judge you by what you do and not what you say, then you kind of start, and as long as you continue to deliver on what you say that you are, then trust is built quite quickly. Mm-hmm. The biggest challenge is, in terms of that, I would say, is that trying to convince somebody to give you the first opportunity.
I think it's a good impact on when it comes to sales. But what would you suggest to someone, to say a hungry entrepreneur who wants to start their own business? And at the end of the day, we all went into our own businesses being skilled in that one area. But then when it comes to entrepreneurship and business, you need to be a mathematician, you need to understand your numbers, you need to be able to liaise with clients and a lot of stuff. What would you suggest to someone on how they can do that? Get better at sales wise? Because I know a lot of people suggest like working for other people, but if you didn't want to work for someone else, you want to go straight into yourself, what would you suggest as a stepping stone?
I think try and surround yourself with good people. I think to find something as well that you're really passionate about. I think if you're not passionate about whatever it is that you're trying to do, I think people can see through that. I've used the word numerous times, but I think to be resilient, and then I think a lot of it is kind of learning by your mistakes, trying to be organised, being structured, talking to lots of people, whether they're in your industry or not. I was lucky enough to have a lot of people around me that were entrepreneurs, so I could ask a lot of questions in terms of across functions that when I first set up on my own, I didn't really understand, in terms of whether that's finance or marketing or logistics and supply chain. And then I find that if you're really candid with people and you ask people for help or advice, I think, certainly in my experience, there isn't many people that would say no. Yeah, I think people typically and generally do want to help and give back. So I think don't be nervous about asking for help. I was never one to sort of join, networking events and things like that. It was more a case of, for me, was actually just surrounding myself with a good network of people that I knew personally that operated in totally different industries, and then also as the team grew, then bringing in people that I could trust. So hopefully that answers your question.
I definitely do. You are very right. I do feel like, especially when you go into business, as I know, obviously before you start something, it is an unknown. When it comes to sales, people are they feel like they're not really, when someone talks to someone, but like, I'm talking to you now, but before, when you first start, I'm not listening to what you're saying. I'm only processing what am I going to say next, and people miss these small little steps they could be hungry, which is great, but then they miss the concept of building them relationships. And sometimes you don't have to say, please buy from my product. Just talking to someone and like just asking what your problems are. Yeah. You know what I'm doing, it can do the same thing, and it pretty goes a long way, because if you trust someone, you're more likely to buy from someone if you trust them than if you don't.
100%, and that's where it comes with asking good questions. Yeah, trying to build confidence and trust. I think as you grow as well, I gave lots of scenarios that this particular brand owner, they had this problem, and then so even if then they don't think that maybe they have that problem or it isn't in the forefront of their mind, give scenarios of when we helped this one and we helped that one, and then these guys had this project and they entrusted us with it, and the value add to their business was, and then we kind of not drip selling, but giving lots of different scenarios of ways that we've helped people, and actually sometimes that problem hasn't even come to the forefront of their mind, but you can tease it out through, to your point precisely, conversation.
Because you find that quite a lot. I feel like when we chat to our clients and to prospective people, sometimes, again, they don't know what they want, but if you give them scenarios of like, because obviously if I could explain something in exact detail or something, but if you can't relate to it, if I said, oh, if we did this for you, that means you can do this, and I didn't think about that, and then it opens up thought, and that's always a good way of...
It's a teaser, really, to try and tease it out of somebody, and then if you can then demonstrate that, whether that's through anything that you can share, or just actually quite often as well as recommendation. So that would be another thing that I've used an awful lot when I know a client or a supplier or customer I've delivered on something, then I've asked, could I please validate it with them? I'm sure that they'd be happy. And obviously, again, recommendation is always the best. And to especially at the beginning. Actually, it still serves us in good stead now, and we still use it. But initially, for sure, when you're trying to build your brand and you're trying to build your reputation and your integrity and all of the things that you might stand for, I think if you can then have another client that has had a positive experience and bring them, and it's kind of, they almost do the selling and the validation to the new prospect for you.
Yeah, like referrals.
Exactly.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly that.
And what point, so you're the account manager at this business, at what point did you think, I want to do this for myself and have my own business?
So I started with M&M in 2005. I stayed in sales for approximately 2.5 years. Mm-hmm. And then I was approached to move into the buying side of the team, which again, I was a little bit unsure of, but I ultimately took that decision to give it a go. And then actually it became apparently clear that it was really the same thing the other way around, but rather than me convincing a guy with a warehouse in Blackheath in London to buy 3 pallets of confectionery, convincing them to sell me 10 trucks of confectionery. But again, so where I wasn't then selling the product purely based on the price or the features and the benefits to said customer in Blackheath, I was actually selling the solution of the business to what M&M could offer to those brand owners. So I sat in that role for approximately 7.5, 8 years. And then 2015, I was approached by an investor who said, look, I really like what M&M are doing. Do you think there are any things that you could maybe do a little bit differently? The things that you think perhaps you could present to your suppliers whereby they think that they would be additional value? And to be frank, there was. So I took the leap into September 2015 and set up brand ambassadors in an office not too dissimilar to this size in a Regis building in central Milton Keynes. And that was scary because I went from a whole team around me to myself and one other person, an administrator, that actually came with me on the journey. And we set the business up and we grew it and we had a USP and we went after a lot of clients and we tried to diversify into some categories that I hadn't previously operated in. But that, I think, so back to your question in terms of what made me kind of take that leap, I think it was the fact that I always had an inherent feeling that I wanted to do something myself. And the opportunity presented itself at what felt like the right time, as scary as it was. I knew I had built a good network of clients that had already trusted me from both a supplier and a customer base. I didn't have any money, so an investor came in and gave me that resource. But then it was a case of learning a lot as you went.
Mm-hmm. And how was that relationship with the investor throughout that sort of time?
Rocky, initially good, and then rocky towards the latter end. Mm-hmm. So myself and my current business partner, Andy, who was my sales director by title, but he didn't have equity in brand ambassadors, took the leap to leave brand ambassadors, which was a very, very difficult decision because ultimately the investor had no involvement in the day-to-day running. He didn't have any relationships with our suppliers and our customers. I didn't want to let them down. Obviously had a big team of people. I didn't want to let them down. We'd grown a terrific business in 5 years from, zero in an office like this to circa 16 million in revenue. So it was a really, really tough one. But ultimately, I think when trust has gone, then it's gone. And Andrew Ellis, who's my current business partner at Global Brand Partners, we took the decision to go again, which, as I say, was not an easy decision. And actually was quite an emotionally difficult one because it felt like myself and the team had built such an amazing business. It was a brand that I very much felt was like our brand and we'd have to start again. But being candid, I was very transparent with all of our suppliers, transparent with our customers of what the situation was. And we set up Global Brand Partners in 2020.
Brilliant. And can you just sort of give us a sort of, in a nutshell, how Global Brand Partners has grown in that time?
Significantly. So our team has grown. So we set the business up again. We had to come right back to basics. Our revenue dropped in year one of Global Brands to around 9 million. So we knew that we'd go backwards in year one, but we felt that we were then very much in control of our destiny. Andy and I had worked together for a long, long time. He ran the sales function. somebody that I trusted implicitly. In fact, we didn't have a contract between us for, I think, the first 3 years of the business. It was done on a handshake. We both put in substantial amounts of money. We begged, borrowed and stole. We had to go and use a IGF, which was fantastic. None of the high street banks wanted to touch us. I had to go and speak with a second or even third tier lender where the money was super expensive. We took out a cash flow loan, and our plan was to pay that initial. We took a cash flow loan out of 500,000. I had to personal guarantee my house, and between Andy and I, we put every penny that we had in. We sold cars. We put everything into the business. So failure, it just wasn't even an option for us. It was, we have to make this work. Obviously, with the support of our families as well. So we gradually then brought the remainder of our team from brand ambassadors in, and we created global brand partners. And the reason why we branded it the way that we did is that the key people in our business is a partnership model. So we issue a profit share every year based on the profits of the business. Everybody has their own individual KPIs and their individual commissions, but it was something that actually I'm really passionate about, is that you reward as a business as a whole, and not just in terms of as an individual salesperson or buyer, because then what happens is there becomes a very quickly a culture of me, and also sales versus buying. The buyer then complains to the salesperson that they're not achieving enough for their stock, and the salesperson blames the buyer that they've paid too much. So we've created this whole culture that we, whatever we do, we disagree and commit. It's one of our key principles as a business, because ultimately we're buying substantial consignments of stock up to the value of £3-4 million at a time, and we haven't placed it. We buy it based on, yes, a lot of data that we have, but also sometimes gut feel. Yes, we will have, we'll do our market due deal, but ultimately we're imparting with large sums of money, and it's really important that the whole team are behind it. So we can disagree for as long as it takes, but by the end of that meeting, we commit to it. And then when we commit to it, then we go back to the supplier, we agree the deal, and then everybody's behind it. So I think that's one of the key things, back to your question, in terms of what's contributed. I think that culture that we have is very much a team culture. And we talk about it a lot, that we win together and we lose together, and we celebrate a lot together. We try and do a lot of cool, fun stuff, but also we work bloody hard.
Yeah, is competitiveness part of that?
There is a competitiveness between the team, but the reward isn't based on who achieves more. Everyone's got an individual KPI, which we say at the start of the year. What number in our commercial team? What number are you prepared to put your name to from a gross profit perspective? And we do that from every single individual. And again, it's a disagree and commit. And everybody within the business then leaves that meeting, and they know that that's the number that they've put their name to. So, yeah, I think there is a competitiveness for people that want to obviously achieve. But I think actually the competitiveness in terms of the culture comes from an individual in terms of wanting to do better than they did the prior month or the prior quarter, prior year. But I think we're all inherently competitive. We want to grow. We want to reap the rewards that success can bring, but in the right way. And we also and we have a really great culture of people wanting to help each other as well. And yeah, a culture of just hard work and resilience.
Yeah.
So you say you started back in, originally 2015, is that correct?
2015 BA, brand ambassadors, and then we started, Andy Ellis and I started GBP in 2020.
So
we're in our 5th year.
What's the next 5 years looking like for you then?
Growth. So we are, again, diversifying. The team's growing. We're bringing in people with different skill sets in categories that we haven't played in historically, things like cosmetics, makeup, general merchandise. So that immediately opens up new conversations, new revenue streams, new categories for us. So we're also seeing that our reputation within the industry is improving all the time. So I think brands are entrusting us with larger and larger consignments more frequently. We're also seeing a shift in the market. We're seeing, obviously, given the current economic downturn, I think given how people are cash strapped, and what I would say is that our typical customer from a demographic perspective is CDE. So these aren't the Marks and Spencer's Waitrose shoppers. So these are people that, really have to make every pound go as far as they possibly can. So what we are seeing is we're seeing a big shift in the market as a whole, broadly across the market, from people migrating away from brands into own label. I've seen an uplift in our volume by circa 40% in the last 18 months. And I don't see, and what I'm reading, I don't see that trend changing anytime soon. So growth, I think, is the key part to that, which is one of the reasons why we recently made the decision to move away from our previous 3PL provider based up in the Midlands, who have been fantastic family-run business. I cannot speak highly enough of them as people. They're tremendous. Operationally, they've been fantastic. They've really supported our growth. But I felt that our trajectory it felt that we were in a place where we were starting to experience some growing pains, and we needed to then start to invest in not just our people, like the additional people that we're bringing in, but actually also our supply chain. We needed to make it more resilient. It needed to be more robust, which is why we recently made the decision to move to WT Transport, and they manage our whole supply chain function. And integrate some of our systems, which makes us a lot more efficient, which is fantastic. And that can only, I guess, be an enabler for our growth.
Brilliant. So I know a few of the people that work for you through various events that we've been to. And from what I can see from the outside is that you're a bit of a mentor for them. Do you see yourself as a mentor?
I would say I don't really like saying that word. I think I'd like to think that people come to me for advice. I'd like to think that I'm very open with the team. I'm very transparent. I don't sit in my own office. I sit on the trading floor. I sit in the middle of the buying office with all of the other buyers. So I think I'm very open to people. So people, I think, just will come to me and ask for guidance or advice, and so I guess in some respects maybe I am. It's not intentional. I just want everybody to be the best version of themselves, and if I can help them, we're all paddling in as fast as we can in the same direction. If I can improve them, then that's only going to not just improve them, but improve the business. It's going to improve our customer feedback if they're in the sales role, or it's going to improve our supplier feedback if they're in a buying function or in a supply chain function. So, yeah, I guess in some respects I am, but not exclusively to anybody. Just generally in the business, I want to be really open and transparent and help people as much as I possibly can.
I'm gonna say, doubling back on one of the last questions you said, which I definitely resonated with me. I thought what I really liked about when you knew what you had to do to make the change, and like you find a lot of big businesses, you guys are, you always need to adapting. And I find some people are so inherently scared of change, and they want to stay the same. And it's like, how do you expect to get different results with the same action? So that's what, and there's a correlating theme which I always see with business like yourself and big businesses, always.
Pivoting.
Yeah, pivoting and knowing what's working, but you can see it coming to a plateauing stage and find something else, and it is really.
Yeah, I think I'm lucky with Andrew, my business partner, and also my team, because we talk really openly about it. It's not a case of I withhold things from certainly my commercial team. we're frequently in the boardrooms, and I'm very candid. You know, this is where I see some risk, and this is what I think we should do, and this is where I think we should invest some money. But ultimately, guys, you know, what do you all think? You know, it's important that everybody has a voice, and obviously, the more experienced they become, the more confident they become. But yeah, we pivot. We're nimble. We're not geared into any of the banks. You know, our money is our money. We can make immediate decisions. You know, we took that decision in terms of moving our supply chain within, and that's probably the largest decision we've had to make. But that once we sat down and we went through it, I would say 48 hours from the initial conversation to actually then facing into the difficult conversation with our existing partner, but then actually, right now, what do we need to do? How are we going to, you know, safeguard our future and effectively work with WT? So, yeah, I think pivoting. I mean, it's quite a new word, but we just we weigh the pros and the cons up all the time. We look at what is the risk, what is the reward, and I think that's just something that we do a number of times a day because of the nature of our business. We don't manufacture anything, you know, so we don't kind of have like regularity to what we do in a lot of ways. So I think that's decision making is something that it becomes quite, or making those what a lot of people would deem as big decisions. We're generally making a lot of those on a daily basis. So that perhaps makes us in a fortunate position to be able to do that. That being said, it doesn't mean, of course, that we get them all right.
So why do the brands that you work with support and trust you?
I think the key thing for us is the transparency piece. I think a lot of our competitors, when the brands ask them who do they sell to, will answer that question, we sell to everyone. Where actually what we ask is, well, when we're asked who do you sell to, who can we sell to? So you set the parameters and you tell us what the rules of the game are, and we will operate within them parameters. Obviously, the more that you restrict those routes to market, it will have a bearing on the price. But what we won't do is buy the stock at a price within those parameters and then sell it outside. So I think it's the transparency. I think it's the fact that we're able to offer some of these key brands the most robust level of security. Safeguard read across. One of the key areas at the moment in the market is some of the major multiples are being really aggressive on price. Obviously, their footfall is diminishing in some cases. And they're asking where is their customer going? Obviously, Aldi, Lidl, they're growing at a rate of knots. But they're asking perhaps why can these retailers, these value retailers, why can they sell a certain product at 50 pence, 52 weeks of the year, where actually you will only enable us to be able to do that on a quarterly basis for a 2-week period. So I think for us, it's about protecting that read across and ensuring that the brands are able to uphold their value that they have in their brands with their key customers. So, yeah, I think in answer to your question, that would be the key areas. And also, I think we're really straightforward to deal with as well. You know, we can pay pro forma up to significant values. We do what we say we're going to do. We can take the stock really quickly. We try to make it as easy as we possibly can for the brand owner, and then build those long-lasting relationships.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Nathan, for coming on the show today. It's been really good.
Thank you very much, mate.
No,
fantastic
thank you.
Episode.
Really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Cheers. So how was that for you, Jack?
That was really good. It was really interesting to see, because you find a lot of people when you go into like Aldi or like Lidl or something.
Lidl.
You see that people are buying the own brands, aren't they?
Yeah.
So it is. You don't actually think about big companies and the mass like having to diversify that much, but evidently have to.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that's sort of quite behind the scenes, but is a really, really massive industry. Wholesale is something that probably really quite a lot of people don't really think about, but is quite quite lucrative. And Nathan has quite obviously been hugely successful in that over the last few years.
Yeah, so definitely, well, again, really interesting to hear all his points. And again, there's so much correlation. These huge businesses being mentors themselves and learning from going through the shit of of the rough of the smooth. We're working with great employees when it comes, as he said before, he said when he first started with his sales, it was very smooth and easy. And then going into the sink or swim kind of theme. And he's, again, really morphed him into the salesman he is today, really.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that sales conversation, and it was a sort of from an expert himself. That's the sort of the best advice that you can get on sales, I reckon. But to find any more of our shows, please go to the links here and here. Let's say, yeah. But see you on the next one, guys. Thank you.